The moment the door opened and Kate walked in, the entire room shifted. But what truly caught people's attention, according to several reports, was Meghan's reaction in that exact second. A reaction so subtle yet so noticeable that observers later claimed it revealed more than words ever could. And the fascinating part is that this brief moment might actually explain a lot about the complicated narrative people have been debating for years. Now here's the thing. When stories about public figures circulate online, they often become exaggerated or misinterpreted. So let me be very clear from the beginning. Much of what we're discussing comes from media observations, body language analysis, and accounts described by sources, not official confirmations. Still, sometimes the smallest moment in a room can spark the biggest conversation, and this one certainly did. According to reports circulating in royal watching circles, the scene unfolded during an event where both Meghan and Kate happened to be present at the same time, something that has historically generated enormous public curiosity. Cameras were already focused on the gathering, and as Kate entered the room, several observers claimed Meghan appeared momentarily still, almost as if the atmosphere had changed for a split second. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, it's important to remember that human reactions in public settings are incredibly complex. People pause, think, adjust posture, or simply react to the movement around them. But what made this moment intriguing is how quickly viewers online began analyzing every frame, every glance, and every expression. And if you've ever watched slow-motion replays of sports moments, you know exactly what I mean. The internet loves a good frame-by-frame breakdown. According to some commentators, Meghan's expression seemed briefly serious before returning to a neutral demeanor. Was it tension? Was it simple surprise? Or was it just a perfectly normal human reaction that the internet turned into a headline? That's the question that keeps this story fascinating. Because here's the reality. Both Meghan and Kate have spent years under an extraordinary level of public attention. Every appearance, every gesture, every interaction can be interpreted in dozens of ways depending on who is watching. And honestly, if cameras followed most of us around all day, I'm pretty sure the internet would find dramatic reactions in our facial expressions too. Still, the moment sparked renewed discussion about the relationship between the two women, one that has been discussed in headlines, documentaries, and commentary segments for quite some time. Some sources claim that the relationship between the two has experienced ups and downs, while other reports suggest that much of the tension narrative may have been amplified by media speculation. And that's where things get really interesting. Because when you watch the actual footage, or even still images from the event, you realize something. The entire moment lasts only a few seconds. That's it. A few seconds that somehow turned into days of online debate. And yet, those few seconds still left people wondering what exactly was going through Meghan's mind at that moment. According to several royal commentators, body language can sometimes reveal subtle emotional cues, like a quick pause, a shift in posture, or a glance that lingers a moment longer than expected. But even the experts admit that interpreting body language without context can be risky. A pause might mean surprise, concentration, or simply the natural rhythm of conversation. In other words, the moment may be meaningful, or it may simply be ordinary. And this is where I personally find the whole story fascinating from a media perspective, because the reaction people are discussing might say just as much about how we consume celebrity stories as it does about the individuals involved. We often look for hidden meanings in small gestures, especially when the people involved are already part of a widely discussed narrative. It's almost like watching a mystery movie where everyone is searching for clues, even if the scene itself was never meant to be mysterious. Still, the curiosity remains. What exactly happened in that room? According to some observers present at the event, the atmosphere remained completely professional and polite. Both women reportedly continued interacting with others in the room without any visible confrontation or dramatic exchange. In fact, several accounts suggest the event itself proceeded smoothly, with attendees focusing on the purpose of the gathering rather than the interpersonal dynamics being speculated about online. Yet somehow, the brief reaction when Kate entered became the most discussed moment of the entire event. And if you think about it, that says a lot about how powerful visual storytelling can be. A single facial expression, captured at the right angle, can generate countless interpretations. Some viewers suggested the reaction showed surprise, others thought it looked like concentration, and a few commentators even suggested it was simply the natural pause people make when someone new enters a room. Personally, I tend to lean toward the simpler explanations in situations like this. Public events can be busy, crowded, and full of unexpected movements. Someone entering the room might briefly catch anyone's attention. Still, curiosity is a powerful force, and the discussion didn't stop there. Within hours of the footage circulating online, social media users began sharing their own theories, highlighting specific frames and pointing out details that others might have missed. Some people believed the reaction was meaningful, while others argued it was completely ordinary. And here, where things get a little amusing, because watching thousands of people debate a 2-second reaction almost feels like a global detective club analyzing a scene from a drama series. Everyone has a theory. Everyone sees something slightly different. But the truth is, without direct confirmation from the people involved, the exact meaning behind that moment remains unknown. And maybe that's part of why stories like this capture attention so easily. Humans are naturally curious about relationships, emotions, and interactions, especially when the individuals involved are widely recognized public figures. Meghan and Kate, after all, represent two different chapters of the modern royal narrative, and their interactions inevitably attract attention. But here's the important thing to remember. Public narratives don't always reflect private realities. According to several commentators who follow royal events closely, both women have consistently maintained professionalism during public appearances. Even when speculation rises, official interactions tend to remain composed and respectful. That consistency is something that often gets overlooked when small moments go viral. Another detail worth noting is that large public events can create unusual camera angles. A brief pause might look dramatic from one angle but completely normal from another. Lighting, timing, and editing can also influence how a moment appears when viewed online. In other words, what we think we're seeing might not fully represent the entire context. And yet, despite all those possibilities, people continue watching the clip, analyzing it, and discussing it. Which brings me back to the original question. Why did Meghan's reaction attract so much attention? My honest opinion, without taking sides, is that the moment tapped into an existing storyline that audiences were already familiar with. When viewers already expect tension, they tend to interpret neutral moments as confirmation of that expectation. It's a psychological effect known as confirmation bias, and it happens all the time in media coverage. Once a narrative exists, people naturally look for moments that appear to support it. But that doesn't necessarily mean the interpretation is accurate. And to be fair, several commentators have pointed out that Meghan's expression changed almost immediately after the initial moment, returning to a calm and composed look. That detail suggests the reaction may have simply been a brief acknowledgement of someone entering the room. Nothing dramatic, nothing confrontational, just a moment that happened to be captured on camera. Still, the conversation continued because once curiosity starts, it rarely stops quickly. Analysts revisited previous events, comparing interactions and looking for patterns. Some suggested the relationship between the two women might have evolved over time, while others argued that public perception may not fully reflect reality. And honestly, I think there's value in remembering that people grow, circumstances change, and relationships, especially in high-profile environments, are rarely as simple as headlines make them appear. The truth is likely more nuanced than any viral clip can reveal. But here's the final twist that makes the story even more interesting. According to several attendees who spoke to media outlets after the event, the overall atmosphere inside the room was calm and respectful throughout. No dramatic confrontation, no uncomfortable exchanges, just a typical formal gathering, which means the entire global discussion may have been sparked by a moment lasting less than 2 seconds. And that, in my opinion, is the real story here. Not conflict, not rivalry, but the extraordinary power of interpretation in the age of viral media. A brief glance becomes a headline. A pause becomes a mystery. And suddenly millions of people are watching the same moment, each seeing something slightly different. So what actually happened when Kate entered the room and Meghan reacted? According to available reports, we simply saw a human moment captured in real time, one that viewers around the world interpreted through their own expectations and curiosity. And maybe that's the most honest conclusion we can reach. Sometimes the biggest stories come from the smallest moments. And sometimes, a reaction that lasts only seconds can keep the internet talking for days.